September 12, 1944. Nancy, France. A German Panther tank column advances cautiously through rolling terrain, supporting infantry pushing back American forces. The Panthers, Germany's finest medium tanks with sloped armor and 75mm guns, feel invincible. They've dominated battlefields across Europe. American Shermans fear them. At 2,000 plus yards, Panthers can destroy Shermans with impunity. The Germans advance with confidence. Then, without warning, the lead Panther explodes. The turret lifts off the hull, flipping backwards. The tank burns immediately. The crew inside dies instantly. The remaining Panthers halt, scanning for threats. Standard procedure: identify the enemy, return fire, advance. But they see nothing. No muzzle flash. No smoke. No visible enemy. The terrain, gentle hills with scattered tree limbs, offers dozens of potential hiding spots. Commanders scan with binoculars. Nothing. 30 seconds later, the second Panther explodes. Same result: catastrophic kill, turret blown off, instant crew death. Now panic sets in. An invisible enemy is destroying Germany's best tanks with perfect accuracy. The Panthers retreat rapidly, abandoning their advance. Later, German intelligence interviews the survivors. Their report is disturbing: enemy fire came from extreme range, estimated 2,500 to 3,000 meters. No visual contact with enemy position. Penetration suggests large-caliber anti-tank weapon, possibly 90mm or larger. Recommend extreme caution in this sector. This is the beginning of Germany's introduction to the M36 Jackson tank destroyer and towed 90mm anti-tank guns, weapons they never prepared for. To understand German shock at 3,000-yard kills, understand what German armor was designed for. The Panther tank, introduced in 1943, was optimized for medium-range combat, effective engagement range, 1,000 to 1,500 meters against most targets. The 75mm KWK-42 gun could penetrate enemy armor reliably at these ranges. Optics: the Panther's TZF-12A gunsight was excellent for 1,000-meter engagements but less effective beyond 2,000 meters. Armor protection: sloped frontal armor designed to deflect shells at typical combat ranges. Vulnerable at extreme ranges where shell trajectory becomes more vertical. German doctrine assumed, tank combat occurs at 800 to 1,500 meters, close enough for reliable hits, far enough for tactical maneuvering. Beyond 1,500 meters, hits become increasingly difficult due to target size, shell drop, and aiming challenges. At 2,000 plus meters, tank-on-tank combat was considered impractical with available optics and guns. This doctrine was validated by experience. Against Soviet tanks, combat typically occurred at 800 to 1,200 meters. Against British tanks in North Africa and Italy, similar ranges. Against American Shermans, Panthers dominated at 1,000 plus meters because Sherman guns couldn't penetrate Panther armor reliably even at close range. The Germans designed their tanks, trained their crews, and developed tactics for this combat paradigm. The American 90mm gun operating effectively at 3,000 yards, nearly twice the expected maximum engagement range, was outside their entire conceptual framework. They literally had no doctrine for this scenario. The weapon shocking the Germans was the 90mm M3 gun, deployed in two configurations: the M36 Jackson tank destroyer, an M10 hull with an open-top turret mounting the 90mm gun. Crew of 5, mobility comparable to Sherman. Excellent optics and fire control. The towed 90mm M1/M2 anti-tank gun, heavy gun requiring truck towing but devastating firepower when in-placed. Lower profile when dug in, making concealment easier. The 90mm M3 specifications: muzzle velocity, 800 plus feet per second, far faster than German 75mm or most Allied guns. Penetration, could penetrate 200 mm plus of armor at 1,000 yards, enough to destroy any German tank from the front. Effective range, 500-3,000 plus yards against large targets like tanks. Ammunition, armor-piercing rounds with exceptional ballistics. But specifications alone don't explain effectiveness. The Americans combined the gun with superior optics. American rangefinders and telescopic sights were among the best in the war. Precision manufacturing, consistent barrel quality meant predictable ballistics. Excellent training, American gunners trained extensively on long-range gunnery. Tactical employment, the Americans used the 90 mm as a long-range ambush weapon, not a brawling tank. The doctrine, position 90 mm guns in concealed positions 2,000 to 3,000 yards from expected German approach routes. Wait for German armor to enter the kill zone. Engage from extreme range before Germans can identify firing position. Destroy lead and rear vehicles, trapping the column. Relocate before Germans can respond effectively. This was precision long-range sniping applied to anti-tank warfare, a concept Germans hadn't encountered. The 90 mm's effectiveness relied on remaining hidden until after firing, sometimes even after multiple shots. How did American crews achieve this? Position selection, Americans chose positions with natural terrain masking, hills, tree lanes, buildings providing cover. Multiple firing positions prepared, shoot, displace, shoot again from different location. Long sight lines to target area but limited enemy sight lines to gun position. Escape routes for quick withdrawal after engagement. Camouflage discipline, crews spent hours perfecting concealment, netting over guns and vehicles, carefully arranged to break up outlines. Natural vegetation added to camouflage, local plants, branches, whatever matched the environment. Minimal movement before engagement, crews froze in position for hours waiting for targets. No cooking fires, no unnecessary activity that could reveal position. Muzzle flash management, the 90 mm produced significant muzzle flash and smoke when firing. Americans mitigated this by positioning guns in shadows or tree lanes where flash would be harder to spot. Firing only when absolutely necessary, making every shot count. Having smoke generators nearby to obscure position after firing. Displacing immediately after engagement before return fire could arrive. Range advantage, at 3,000 yards, the visual angle from target to gun is extremely small. A gun position that seems obvious at 500 yards becomes nearly invisible at 3,000 yards. This distance gave Americans time to observe German responses and adjust. The result, German tanks were destroyed by an enemy they couldn't see, couldn't range, and couldn't effectively return fire against. The psychological effect was devastating. Nancy, France. The M36 Jackson crew has been in position since dawn, concealed in a tree lane overlooking a valley. The crew, commander, Sergeant James Mitchell, veteran of North Africa and Italy. Gunner, Corporal David Price, trained on long-range gunnery. Loader, PFC Robert Hayes. Driver and assistant driver complete the crew. They've prepared their position carefully, gun positioned with clear field of fire across valley. Range markers established at 500-yard intervals using terrain features. Multiple ranging points identified, a destroyed barn, 2,200 yards, a road junction, 2,800 yards, a hill, 3,100 yards. Ammunition ready, armor-piercing rounds selected. At 1,400 hours, German Panthers appear, advancing along the expected route. Mitchell counts 6 tanks. He waits. Patience is critical. The Panthers advance to 3,200 yards. Still too far. Mitchell waits for them to reach the optimal range. At 2,900 yards, the lead Panther crosses the road junction, a prearranged point. Mitchell, gunner, target tank, 2,900 yards, junction reference. Price adjusts the sight, compensating for range and slight crosswind. He's trained for this. The ballistic drop at this range is significant, the shell will arc dozens of feet before impacting. Price centers the crosshairs on the Panther's hull, aiming high to compensate for drop. On target. Fire. The 90mm roars. Recoil rocks the M36. The crew watches the tracer arc across the valley. 3 seconds of flight time. The round strikes the Panther's turret side, penetrating cleanly. The ammunition inside detonates. The Panther explodes catastrophically. Mitchell doesn't celebrate. Load AP. Traverse right, second tank. Inside the second Panther, Oberleutnant Karl Schmidt has just watched his lead tank explode. His immediate thoughts: where did that come from? He scans desperately with his commander's optics. He sees nothing. No muzzle flash visible. The valley and surrounding hills show no obvious threats. Radio call, contact. Lead vehicle destroyed. Enemy position unknown. The company commander orders, all units, defensive posture. Locate enemy. Schmidt's gunner traverses the turret, scanning for targets. Nothing. The Americans are invisible at this range. 40 seconds after the first hit, Schmidt's Panther shudders violently. He doesn't hear the impact, the sound comes after the shell arrives. His tank is hit. The crew is lucky, the round penetrates the engine compartment, not the crew space. The engine explodes. Fire spreads. Bail out. Bail out. The crew evacuates rapidly. The tank is burning, mission killed even though the crew survives. Schmidt's after-action report describes his confusion: we engaged by long-range anti-tank fire. Estimated range 2.5 to 3 kilometers based on time between muzzle flash observation and impact, approximately 3 seconds. This range exceeds our effective return fire capability. We could not identify firing position with certainty. Attempted return fire was ineffective. The German company commander makes the tactical decision: retreat immediately, request artillery support, return with infantry to locate and suppress the American position. The Germans withdraw rapidly, abandoning the advance. The Americans have achieved their goal: stop the German advance, inflict casualties, preserve their own force. The M36 displaces to an alternate position before German artillery can range their location. Why was 3,000 yards such a decisive advantage? The mathematics: at 3,000 yards, 2,743 meters, the visual angle from target to gun is approximately 0.3 degrees assuming the gun is 5 meters wide. This makes visual detection extremely difficult without knowing exactly where to look. Flight time of a 90mm round at 3,000 yards, approximately 3 to 3.5 seconds. This delay between muzzle flash and impact compounds difficulty of locating the firing position. Ballistic drop at 3,000 yards, the shell drops approximately 15 to 20 meters from bore line to impact point. Gunners must aim significantly above the target. This requires excellent rangefinding and trained crews. German return fire challenges: Panther 75mm gun effective range, approximately 2,000 meters maximum for reliable hits on tank-sized targets. At 3,000 yards, even if Germans located the American position, their guns couldn't reliably hit it. Even if they scored a hit, penetration at extreme range against prepared positions was unlikely. Tiger tanks fared slightly better with 88mm guns, but still struggled to return effective fire at 3,000 plus yards. The optical disadvantage: German tank optics were excellent for 1,000 to 1,500 meter engagements but less effective at extreme range. Identifying a camouflaged position at 3,000 yards through a tank periscope was nearly impossible. American gunners, with better range-finding equipment and prepared positions, had significant optical advantages. The tactical calculus: American 90mm could reliably kill German tanks at 3,000 yards. German tanks could not reliably return fire at this range. Therefore, Americans controlled the engagement, choosing when to fire and when to disengage. This asymmetry was insurmountable for German armor. The 90mm's long-range effectiveness relied heavily on superior American optics and fire control, the M36 Jackson's fire control, M76F telescopic sight, 5x magnification, exceptional clarity. Designed specifically for long-range engagements. Graduated range scale allowing precise aiming at different ranges. The sight was among the best tank optics of World War II. Commander's periscope allowed the commander to scan wide areas and identify targets. Once identified, the gunner engaged using the telescopic sight. Range-finding techniques. American crews used multiple methods: terrain association, prearranging known landmarks and using them to estimate target distance. Mil-dot ranging, using the reticle to estimate target size and calculate range. Stadiometric rangefinding, mathematical calculation based on known tank dimensions. These techniques, combined with training, allowed accurate range estimation. Towed 90mm guns had even better optics, M1 panoramic telescope, used for laying the gun precisely on target. Separate rangefinding equipment. Some units had dedicated optical rangefinders providing extremely accurate distance measurement. The training advantage. American gunners spent extensive time on long-range gunnery training. They practiced ranging, aiming, and engaging targets at 2,000 to 3,000 yards until it became second nature. They studied ballistics tables and understood shell trajectory at various ranges. German tankers, by contrast, trained primarily for 800 to 1,500 meter engagements, the expected combat range. The combination of superior optics, better rangefinding, and specialized training created an American capability Germans couldn't match. When a German tank appeared at 3,000 yards, the American gunner had the tools and skills to hit it. German crews at the same range couldn't reliably return fire. American doctrine for the 90mm emphasized ambush over maneuver warfare, traditional tank combat, two forces maneuver, closing to effective range. They exchange fire while moving. Victory goes to superior armor, firepower, or tactical skill. American 90mm doctrine: don't maneuver. Don't close range. Don't exchange fire. Instead, select defensive positions with long sight lines. Prepare positions thoroughly, camouflage, ranging, escape routes. Wait for enemy to enter kill zone. Engage from maximum range. Destroy lead/rear vehicles to trap column. Continue engaging until enemy retreats or you must displace. Withdraw before enemy can mass effective return fire. Repeat from new position. This was fundamentally different from German experience. Germans were used to fighting mobile tank battles. They expected American armor to advance, maneuver, close range. The 90mm refused to fight this way. It ambushed from extreme range and disappeared. Frustration mounted as Germans repeatedly encountered this: advance into sector. Get hit by long-range fire from invisible position. Attempt to locate and suppress firing position. Find nothing or find abandoned position. Resume advance. Get hit again from different position. This cycle repeated across the front wherever 90mm guns operated. The psychological toll: German tank crews developed fear of open terrain with long sight lines. They knew American 90mm guns could be anywhere. Every advance became tense, waiting for the invisible shot. Morale suffered. Tank commanders became hesitant, slowing advances. This caution degraded German tactical effectiveness even when 90mm guns weren't present. The threat alone changed German behavior. German forces tried multiple approaches to counter the 90mm threat: artillery suppression. When a 90mm position was suspected, Germans called for artillery fire on the general area. This sometimes worked, but Americans usually displaced before artillery arrived. The concealment that made 90mm positions hard for tanks to spot also made them hard to target with artillery. Artillery expenditure was high for uncertain results. Infantry reconnaissance. Germans began using infantry to scout ahead of armor, attempting to locate American anti-tank positions before tanks entered kill zones. This slowed advances significantly and exposed infantry to American small arms and artillery. Often, 90 mm positions were too far from German infantry to be spotted effectively. Close-range night advances. Germans attempted to advance at night or in poor visibility to close range before Americans could engage at distance. This worked occasionally but reduced German mobility and coordination. American artillery and infantry defensive fires were still effective. Americans adapted by repositioning or withdrawing rather than fighting at close range. Concentrated attacks. Germans massed armor hoping to overwhelm American positions through numbers. Some success but concentration made German forces vulnerable to American artillery. 90 mm guns often destroyed lead vehicles, disrupting the concentrated attack. American doctrine emphasized fighting outnumbered, quality over quantity. None of these countermeasures proved consistently effective. The fundamental problem remained unsolved. American 90 mm guns could kill German tanks at ranges where German return fire was ineffective. Concealment and displacement allowed Americans to avoid destruction. The combination was tactically insurmountable for German armor. The German Tiger tank, mounting the fearsome 88 mm gun and nearly impenetrable frontal armor, should theoretically counter the 90 mm threat. In practice, Tigers struggled. The 88 mm KWK-36 gun on Tiger I, excellent penetration at typical combat ranges. Effective range approximately 2,000 to 2,500 meters against tank-sized targets. At 3,000 yards, accuracy decreased significantly. The Tiger II's 88 mm KWK-43 was better but still challenged at extreme range. The Tiger's advantages. Heavy armor could potentially survive a 90 mm hit if angled properly and at extreme range. The 88 mm gun had better long-range capability than the Panther's 75 mm. Experienced Tiger crews were among Germany's best tankers. But Tigers still faced problems. Optics. Tiger gun sights were optimized for 1,500 to 2,000 meter engagements, not 3,000 yards. Target identification. Spotting a camouflaged position at 3,000 yards was difficult regardless of tank type. Penetration at range. Even if a Tiger hit the M36, the open-top turret meant a near miss could still kill the crew. The 90 mm HVAP, high-velocity armor-piercing, rounds could penetrate Tiger armor at long range. Battlefield example, Lorraine, October 1944, a Tiger I advances, supporting infantry. An M36 Jackson engages from approximately 3,100 yards. First round strikes the Tiger's turret side, a difficult shot at this range but the gunner is skilled. The round penetrates. The Tiger is mission killed. The Tiger's gunner never acquires the American position. The Tiger limps away, damaged. The psychological impact on German crews. If even Tigers couldn't reliably counter the 90 mm threat, what could? Morale in German armored units declined as they realized they were outranged and outmatched. Beyond physical destruction, the 90 mm created psychological warfare. German tankers developed acute anxiety about long-range engagements. Every open field became threatening. Every tree lean could hide a 90 mm. The invisible enemy was more terrifying than visible opponents. Accounts from German tank commanders described the fear. You advance knowing that somewhere, perhaps 3 kilometers away, an American gun is watching through a scope. He will fire when ready. You cannot see him, cannot return fire effectively, cannot protect yourself except by retreating. This is psychological torture. The uncertainty compounded the fear. Sometimes Germans advanced without encountering 90 mm fire. Were there no American guns? Or were they watching, waiting for a better opportunity? The Germans never knew. This uncertainty, when and where the invisible shots would come, was psychologically exhausting. Some German crews developed superstitions and rituals attempting to protect themselves. Others became fatalistic. If the Americans want to kill you, they will. Nothing you do matters. This fatalism degraded combat effectiveness. Why fight hard if random death from 3,000 yards can come anytime? The American commanders recognized this psychological effect. Reports noted that German advances were becoming more cautious and hesitant. German armor was taking longer to cover the same distances. This caution gave Americans time to prepare defenses, reposition forces, and bring up reinforcements. The 90 mm psychological impact multiplied its tactical impact, not just destroying tanks but disrupting entire German operations through fear and hesitation. American 90 mm crews became masters of concealment, developing techniques Germans couldn't counter: natural camouflage integration. Crews studied the local environment extensively: tree species, foliage density, ground cover patterns, seasonal coloration. Camouflage netting was modified with local vegetation to match exactly. Patterns were irregular. Humans create regular patterns, nature doesn't. Germans learned to spot regularity. Shine and shadow management: any reflective surface could reveal position. Optics were covered when not in use. Metal surfaces were painted with non-reflective paint. Gun barrels were wrapped with burlap or netting to break up the long straight line. Crews positioned guns in shadows, making muzzle flash harder to spot. Movement discipline: movement attracts attention. American crews minimized it. Once positioned, crews remained nearly motionless for hours. Necessities: food, water, bathroom, were handled during hours of darkness. Equipment was pre-positioned so no movement was needed during engagements. Deception: Americans created dummy positions, obvious camouflaged positions that drew German attention and fire. Real positions remained hidden nearby. Germans wasted ammunition and time attacking dummies while the real guns remained undetected. Displacement tactics: after engaging, crews displaced rapidly using pre-planned routes. They never fired more than 3 to 4 rounds from a single position if possible. New positions were prepared beforehand, allowing quick occupation. German frustration mounted. After-action reports describe searching for American positions and finding nothing or finding abandoned positions. The Americans seemed to vanish after each engagement. Intelligence officers struggled to predict where 90 mm guns would appear next. While precise statistics vary by sector and time period, available records show the 90 mm's devastating effectiveness. M36 Jackson kill ratios, approximately 4-5 to 1 or better, for German tanks destroyed for each M36 lost. Some individual M36 crews reported 10+ kills without loss. Loss rates for M36s were significantly lower than M4 Shermans in the same operations. Towed 90 mm guns were even more survivable due to better concealment and prepared positions. Range statistics: analysis of engagement ranges showed, M36 average engagement range, 1,800 to 2,200 yards. Many engagements occurred beyond 2,500 yards. German tanks typically engaged American armor at 800 to 1,200 yards. The range advantage translated directly to kill ratios. First shot kill probability: M36s with prepared positions achieved 70 to 80% first-round hit rates at optimal ranges, 1,500 to 2,500 yards. Hit usually meant kill. 90 mm penetration was devastating. German return fire hit rates at these ranges were estimated at 20 to 30% against stationary targets, far lower against the well-camouflaged 90 mm positions. Strategic impact: the 90 mm forced German armor to operate more cautiously, slowing their offensive and defensive operations. This tempo reduction gave Americans time advantages that had strategic consequences. German tank availability decreased not just from battle losses but from psychological factors. Crews were less willing to advance aggressively. The numbers vindicated American doctrine: long-range ambush tactics worked. Superior optics and training created decisive advantages. The 90 mm was among the most effective anti-tank weapons in American service. Captured German documents and post-war interrogations reveal how German leadership viewed the 90 mm threat. A report from a Panzer Division commander, November 1944, American anti-tank capability has increased dramatically with the introduction of 90 mm guns. These weapons engage from ranges previously considered safe. Our tanks are vulnerable before they can effectively return fire. Recommend avoiding open terrain where American guns can exploit their range advantage. Without air superiority or artillery superiority, we cannot effectively neutralize these positions. A tank battalion commander's assessment: the American 90mm operates under a doctrine we are unprepared for. They refuse close-range combat, engaging only from positions of advantage. When we advance, they destroy lead and rear vehicles, then disappear before we can respond. This is not cowardice, it is tactically sophisticated. We have no effective counter within our current doctrine. An intelligence officer's analysis: American 90mm crews demonstrate exceptional training in long-range gunnery, camouflage discipline, and tactical patience. They are willing to wait hours for optimal firing opportunities. Their optical equipment is superior to ours at extreme range. Combined with their refusal to fight on our terms, they present a nearly insurmountable challenge to our armor forces. These assessments acknowledged uncomfortable truths. American tank destroyer doctrine was superior for defensive operations. German tanks, designed for mobile warfare, were ill-suited for fighting prepared defensive positions. The technological advantage of superior optics and the 90mm gun created tactical situations Germans couldn't overcome with existing equipment and doctrine. But acknowledgement didn't create solutions. Germany lacked resources to develop effective counters. The men operating the 90mm guns understood their advantages and limitations. Sergeant Mitchell's perspective: M36 commander, we're not here to dogfight German tanks. We're here to kill them from where they can't kill us back. That means range, concealment, and patience. We pick our positions carefully, range everything in sight, and wait. Sometimes we wait all day and never fire a shot. Other times, we engage multiple targets in minutes. The key is discipline: never fire unless you have a good shot and a good escape route. Corporal Price's view: gunner, the 90mm is a beautiful weapon. At 2,000 yards, if I can see the target clearly in my scope, I can hit it. The gun is accurate, the ammunition is consistent, and the optics are excellent. The challenge is finding the target. Camouflaged positions are hard to spot at that range. But once I've got the crosshairs on target, I'm confident. The crew's routine: dawn, move to pre-selected position before first light. Daylight, camouflage, prepare position, range landmarks, wait. Engagement: if targets appear, commander confirms identification, gunner acquires, they engage. Displacement: after firing, immediate withdrawal to alternate position. Dusk: if no engagement occurred, withdraw to assembly area for the night. This routine repeated daily. Sometimes crews went days without engaging. Other times, they fought multiple engagements in a single day. The psychological strain of this waiting game was significant, but training and discipline kept crews effective. After the war, military analysts studied the 90mm's effectiveness and drew conclusions that shaped future armor and anti-tank development. Key lessons: long-range precision engagement is decisive in armor warfare. Superior optics and fire control are as important as gun caliber. Prepared defensive positions with good concealment can defeat superior numbers of mobile armor. Crew training in specialized tactics multiplies weapon effectiveness. Psychological impact of long-range precision kills affects enemy morale significantly. Influence on post-war systems: the American 90mm success influenced development of Cold War tank destroyers emphasizing long-range engagement. Advanced fire control systems for precise long-range shooting. Emphasis on optical superiority in tank design. Doctrine emphasizing prepared defensive positions in anti-armor warfare. The Soviet analysis: Soviets studied American 90mm's employment extensively, they incorporated lessons into their own anti-tank doctrine. Post-war Soviet tank destroyers emphasized concealment and long-range engagement. Soviet training emphasized the importance of superior optics and range-finding. The American doctrine: U.S. Army retained the tank destroyer concept through the early Cold War, though eventually the role was absorbed into main battle tank capabilities. The principle: long-range precision kills from prepared positions, remained central to American armor doctrine. The 90mm's legacy extended far beyond World War II, shaping how militaries thought about anti-armor warfare for decades. Breaking down the technical factors that made the 90mm such a devastating weapon: ballistic performance, muzzle velocity, 2,800 frames per second, feet per second, with standard AP ammunition. 3,350 frames per second with HVAP ammunition. This high velocity meant flatter trajectory, less compensation needed for range. Shorter flight time, less time for target to move. Greater penetration, kinetic energy remained high even at long range. Ammunition types: M77 armor-piercing, standard round, excellent penetration. M304 HVAP, high-velocity armor-piercing tungsten core, exceptional penetration even at extreme range. Could defeat Tiger armor frontally at 2,000 plus yards. M71 high explosive, for infantry and soft targets. The HVAP rounds were particularly devastating. German tanks had no armor thick enough to reliably stop them at combat ranges. Barrel accuracy: American manufacturing quality control ensured consistent barrel dimensions and rifling. This translated to consistent accuracy: shells went where aimed. Fire control: the M76F sight combined with trained crews created a fire control system superior to what Germans had in field use. Range-finding accuracy and quick engagement capability gave Americans first-shot advantages. Platform stability: the M36 suspension, while not exceptional, was adequate for firing from stationary positions. Towed guns, when properly emplaced, were extremely stable firing platforms. The combination of these factors created a weapon system that was more than the sum of its parts. Each element, ballistics, ammunition, optics, platform, was good. Together, they were exceptional. Technology alone didn't create the 90mm's effectiveness. The human element was crucial. American training philosophy: gunnery training emphasized long-range shooting, crews practiced at 2,000 to 3,000 yards extensively. Range-finding skills: estimating distance accurately was drilled constantly. First-round hit mentality: taking time to ensure a good shot rather than rapid fire. Tactical patience: waiting for optimal firing opportunity rather than shooting at first opportunity. This contrasted with German training, which by 1944 was abbreviated due to fuel and time shortages. Many late-war German tank crews had minimal training. Crew selection: Americans selected crew members based on aptitude. Gunners needed excellent vision, steady hands, and good math skills for ballistics calculations. Commanders needed tactical judgment and patience. Loaders needed strength and speed. This selective approach ensured quality crews even if it meant fewer overall tank destroyer units. Doctrine development: American tank destroyer doctrine evolved through combat experience. Early in the war, tank destroyers attempted mobile warfare. This failed against German tanks. By mid-1944, doctrine shifted to prepared defensive positions and long-range ambush. This proved highly effective. The doctrine explicitly stated, tank destroyers are not tanks. Don't fight like tanks. Use range and concealment, not armor and maneuver. This doctrinal clarity prevented misuse of the weapon system. The combination of superior training, careful crew selection, and clear doctrine created crews that used the 90mm to its full potential, something that wouldn't have happened with the weapon alone. The American 90mm gun, whether mounted in the M36 Jackson or deployed as a towed anti-tank gun, represented a capability that fundamentally disrupted German tactical assumptions. What Germans expected: tank-on-tank combat at 800 to 1,500 meters. Close-range engagements where armor, maneuverability, and crew skill decided outcomes. American tanks advancing to meet German armor in mobile warfare. What they encountered instead: precision long-range kills from 2,500 to 3,000 yards. Invisible enemies engaging from prepared positions. American tank destroyers refusing close-range combat. An entirely different philosophy of anti-armor warfare. The shock to German forces was profound. They built their armored forces around medium-range mobile combat. Panthers, Tigers, and other German tanks were optimized for this combat style. The 90mm didn't play by these rules. It redefined what effective range meant in armor combat. The psychological impact matched the physical. German tank crews learned to fear open terrain. Every advance became anxious, waiting for the invisible shot. The confidence of German armored forces, who dominated European battlefields for years, was shattered. The legacy, the 90mm success demonstrated that technology, training, and doctrine must align. Superior weapons poorly employed achieve little. Adequate weapons brilliantly employed can dominate. American tank destroyer forces understood this and executed it flawlessly. The 90mm wasn't just a gun. It was a complete weapon system: gun, optics, ammunition, trained crews, sound doctrine, and tactical patience. This combination created a capability that German forces were unprepared for and never effectively countered. In the final months of World War II in Europe, when German Panthers appeared on the battlefield, they faced a terrible truth: somewhere, 3,000 yards away, an American gunner was watching through a telescopic sight, finger on the trigger, waiting for the perfect moment. The Germans never prepared for this. And they paid the price in burning tanks and shattered confidence. The invisible killer at 3,000 yards had arrived, and changed armor warfare forever.